Thank you all for coming. Before I begin, may I ask you how many of you here are vegan? That's incredible for an environmental organization. And how many of you would deliberately hurt an innocent animal unnecessarily? So by definition, all of us are vegan. Okay? Except for some of us, it's hard, because who we are and what we do are not in alignment. And we suffer as a result of that. Okay? So this is a story about climate change and how we change our story. Because anytime you have to make a major transition in humanity, we have always had to change our stories. So let me show you what we are talking about here, how we change the stories. Let me begin by asking you, how many of you think that humanity is a cancer on the planet? Okay, with 3 of us. So that's how this story begins.
Is humanity nothing more than a cancer on the planet, consuming its host until it is gone, guaranteeing its own destruction in the process? A quick glance at the effects of our behavior might lead us to say yes. But looks can be deceiving. Nature shows us that what is destructive on one level can also be part of a larger process of change that creates new forms of value at another level. Consider the Indian elephant. At first glance, the elephant appears to be destructive as she tramples through the forest, breaking limbs from trees, eating all the jackfruit, and littering the landscape with huge piles of poo. But when we look closer, we see that the trampling provides pathways for the other animals in the forest. The breaking of tree branches allows the sun's rays to reach the forest floor, enabling plants to grow in the understory. And elephant poop contains jackfruit seeds buried in fertile manure, which propagates the jackfruit tree. Like the elephant, could it be that some of humanity's destructive behavior might actually have some positive unintended consequences? As we look back at Earth's story, we learn that its climate has been vastly different throughout its history. When dinosaurs roamed the land, Earth was void of ice. The sea level was hundreds of meters higher and the temperature 10 degrees warmer than it is today. Modern science has learned that there is a direct relationship between the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and the Earth's temperature. Greenhouse gases are like a blanket around the Earth, absorbing just the right amount of heat from the sun to make life possible. The higher the concentration, the warmer the temperature. In Earth's more recent history, it has endured a series of long ice ages. During each ice age, life struggles to survive. Imagine a 1-mile thick sheet of ice on top of Chicago. All the forests die. Most of the life in the forest die, as very little can survive in these extreme conditions. Every 100 millennia, a slight change in the Earth's tilt allows the planet to absorb just enough additional heat to thaw some of the ice. Life expands for a few thousand years during this interglacial period, before retreating again as the Earth tilts back and falls into another ice age. Enter human beings. From the Earth's perspective, humans are new to the scene. We've been here for a blink of an eye. But we've been busy. As the Earth entered its most recent interglacial period, humans began deforesting the Earth to fuel their nation civilizations. It is calculated that more greenhouse gases were released into the atmosphere through deforestation than all the gases emitted from the burning of fossil fuels. Humans, unknowingly to them, warmed the Earth, delaying the onset of the next ice age. It turns out that there's a safe zone when it comes to greenhouse gas concentrations that keeps Earth at just the right temperature for life as we know it to thrive. Any less and we freeze, any more and we fry. In the last few decades, we've blown past this safe zone way too fast for life today to adjust, as we continue to destroy the forests for animal agriculture and find destructive new ways of extracting fossil fuels, adding ever more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. While our actions have had devastating impacts to many species on the planet, they've also enabled humans to develop the technology necessary to monitor Earth's composition. Like the part of the brain that helps stabilize and regulate our body's temperature, humans now have the ability to help Earth regulate its temperature. We've already been doing it unconsciously for thousands of years. Perhaps it's time we become conscious of our role on the planet as the thermostat species. When we choose to stop eating animals, the land used for raising those animals can be restored to forests. And those forests can sequester all of the greenhouse gases we've emitted during the fossil fuel age, bringing us back within the safe zone where life as we know it can thrive. This requires that humanity undergo a metamorphosis from an egocentric consumer culture to an ecocentric, life-enriching culture. Again, nature shows us how this is done. A caterpillar spends his entire life, from the moment he's born, eating. He eats the nutritious shell he was born out of. Then he eats the leaf the egg was clinging to. The caterpillar continues eating all the leaves he encounters. Once fully satiated, the caterpillar attaches to the underside of a twig and begins growing a cocoon. New imaginal cells are born. At first, the imaginal cells are attacked by the caterpillar's immune system. But soon, they multiply and the immune system gives up. What was once a caterpillar is now a messy glob of imaginal goo. Soon, out of the cocoon emerges a beautiful butterfly. The butterfly is a very light consumer. As she sips the nectar, she pollinates the flowers, helping to regenerate life. Nurturing life instead of destroying it. The time has come for humanity to undergo its metamorphosis. Our imaginal cells are awakening. We have a unique opportunity in this pivotal time in history to realize our full potential by considering ourselves stewards of life, applying the lessons we've learned to nurture the conditions for life to thrive for all of Earth's remaining years.
So, what do you think? Shall we do this? How many of you now think that we are still a cancer on the planet? Okay. You're going to have to check the facts. You have to go read the books. But it's what kind of story we tell ourselves that determine how we act. And I want to show you how powerful this choice of diet is. So let's do a thought experiment. Let's imagine that all 7.5 billion of us come together in a group hug. What do you think would be the diameter of the circle as we hug each other? Can you guess? 100 miles? 30 miles? 30 miles is actually pretty close. It's about 20 miles. So imagine then we get together and have food. How large would the dining room have to be? So if you meet regulations, for fast food standards, it would have to be about 60 miles on a side. Okay? So now all 7.5 billion of us are here for dinner. What are you going to serve them? We have to serve food, okay? So I'm going to show you two choices. So the first choice is we serve them vegan organic food. For that, you need to procure 1.5 million tons of food. That's the dry matter biomass of food that you have to provide for them. That's roughly 0.5 pound per person. And if you do this, after every meal, you can actually go and plant 1.5 million acres of land with new forests. Over time, that will sequester 75 million tons of carbon after every meal. So there's roughly 1,000 meals in a year. So that's 75 billion tons of carbon you can sequester if you just did this. And in 8 years, you will cover all the land that we are currently using for livestock production. Because that's how much land we are using today, 12 billion acres. So we will save 3 trillion gallons of water if everyone ate an organic vegan diet. And you would save 40,000 human lives after every meal. You save the animals and save the earth. So, but that's a culture where we are all together, we are doing something together, and we are in a culture of normalized non-violence towards the earth. Now, suppose we decide to feed them whatever they're eating today. This is what you'll have to do at the bottom. First of all, you'll have to procure 9 million tons of food, not 1.5 million. Why? Why all that extra food? That's 7.5 million tons you need to procure for your animals. That's how much our animals eat. So it's 1.5 million tons for us, 7.5 million tons for our animals. After every meal, you'll drive 70 species extinct. So in a year, that will be 70,000 species gone extinct. For every meal, you'll have to kill 2 billion animals. Who's going to do it? All of you said you would never hurt an innocent animal unnecessarily. So none of you are going to do it. So someone has to do it. So how do you make someone do it? Create poverty. Don't give them food. Take away their food. Then they'll be desperate and they'll do whatever you want. So you force them to go kill the animals for you. Usually it is colored people who do that. So you get racism built into it. You get colonialism built into it. And it's mostly women who go and graze all these animals. So it's sexism built into it. You have to go destroy 20,000 acres of forest after every meal. And you'll be degrading 7 million acres of land just by grazing these animals. And after every meal, you'll be hypoxifying 1 million acres of ocean. So dead zones in the ocean. That's what is going on today. So you see how powerful our food choices are? It's a choice between life and death. It's a choice between living in harmony with the earth and destroying it. Destroying it actually very quickly. We don't have too much time to make this change. So here are 5 major facts. You can go check this out. We have the references on our website. Okay? The first fact is that 52% of all wild vertebrates died between 1970 and 2010, in 40 years. And between 1970 and 2012, 58% died. Which means every year we are losing another 3% of wild vertebrates. At that rate, we'll wipe them out by 2026. Except if we change. We have a choice. At every meal you have a choice. What are you going to do with your choices? Veganism is the fastest growing social justice movement in the Western world. 600% growth in vegans in the US in the last 3 years. 700% growth in the number of vegans in the UK in the last 2 years. Yet the meat industry goes out there and convinces other people to eat the meat that that we are not eating here. So overall, the industry is still growing. So 70 billion animals were killed for food in 2014, and 74 billion were killed in 2016. So it's going up by about 2 billion animals per year. We kill 1 to 3 trillion sea animals every year. And the ocean doesn't have this infinite resource, right? You can't keep taking out like this. They're going to die off. We pour 250 billion tons of toxic chemicals into the environment every year. How many of you ever hear about this? We don't hear about this in the media. We only hear about climate change and CO2. That too, only CO2. Climate change is caused by 60 billion tons of greenhouse gases, and only 36 billion tons of those is CO2. Why are we being framed the story in this way? See, we are told this story because if you frame it as a climate change issue and only a fossil fuel issue, there is nothing you can do about it. You're stuck. But if you understood the truth and you realize the power you have with your food choices, you will start making changes yourself and you will grab the power for yourself. So the system of the caterpillar is trying to keep us as a caterpillar forever. In the process, they're killing us. Because that's the choice that the caterpillar has in the cocoon. Evolve into a butterfly or die. And that's the choice we are facing today. Evolve into a vegan world or go extinct. And we did our research to figure out why is it that we are stuck in this mode. And it turns out that there are only 4 financial companies that are really, they have the power over all of us. So you can look up Morningstar and you will see that these 4 financial companies have majority sharehold on all these major corporations. So big meat, big pharma, big media, and big chemical. It's the same 4 financial companies, and they are really driving this caterpillar system, this system of consumption. So the growth that we have been promoting has been a cancerous growth. It isn't just the poor people who are being oppressed. We are all being oppressed. We are all part of this matrix, so to speak. See, we pour 250 billion tons of chemicals into the environment and no one does any regulation on that. It's unregulated. So those chemicals then work their way up the food chain. They get concentrated in animal foods. And they persuade us to eat more animal foods as we become more wealthy. Because as you become more wealthy, you have more money in your pocket. So you can afford to pay for the diseases you're going to get. Right? And when you get those diseases, they give you pharmaceuticals to fix those diseases, or rather paper them over. So this cycle is enormous. It's about 80% of the GDP of the planet. And that's completely artificial growth. And it isn't just these big pharma, big chem, and big meat. But every corporation, every major corporation has these 4 financial companies at the whole. And they're financial holding companies. Because they're holding companies, they don't have to disclose who their shareholders are. So we don't know who they are. All we know is they must be very wealthy people. But they've done their job. They've grown this. They've created this caterpillar. They've grown it. Now it's up to us to transform into a butterfly. We have to take the power into our own hands and do this ourselves. If you rely on them, this is what they're doing. As the planet burns, they're playing golf, okay? So don't rely on anyone from the top to do this for us. So this is what we can do about it. This is the power we have at the tip of our forks. And of course, it's a systemic issue. So you really have to create a system of normalized nonviolence. We currently are in a culture and a system of normalized violence. So you have to create a system and a culture of normalized nonviolence where we can all participate. It has to be a participatory democracy. Throughout the world, we have to come together to do this. It cannot be nation by nation. So anyway, please go ahead and check the facts, do the research yourself, read the books. I've got all kinds of references. We try to sort out only those references that are not paid by the industry. Okay? We look for independent research. So please check them out, and I'm open to any questions. Thank you very much.